Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today I have a 2020 wrap up for you guys. So 2020 has been a year, I'd say, for majority of us, for all of us, the whole entire world actually. What am I even saying? It has been a whirlwind, and living in fear and living in our homes only, being quarantined. I mean, this is all new for us. This is just so crazy. But I will say I was able to read a lot of books. I was able to get in touch with myself again and research spirituality, along with reading fiction, which I love so much, and also deciding to go back to school. Yes, 2020 has been a rough year, but also I think it brought a lot of things to light for most of us as well, and brought things to realization, and also brought things up that need to be taken care of. And I think a lot of people decided to either start Etsy shops or go back to school or get a new job and just start fresh, because 2020 made us slow down a little bit and just kind of hunker down and think of the things that mean a lot to us and think of the things that no longer serve us as well. So on that note, I read some books, and I am looking forward to 2021, especially being in university all over again, and I'll be doing a lot of reading because I am an English major, and I'm finishing a degree, so there's gonna be a lot of reading study going on and writing study going on, and I'm really excited about that because this year was kind of like a reading year for me. I didn't really love everything I was picking up, and even the books that I did love, I mean, they were okay. Like, they weren't like anything that nothing was really a new favorite for me, let's put it that way. So I'm really looking forward to moving on to 2021 and reading more quality books than quantity books and not racing to the finish line. I cannot tell you how often I felt slumpish and how often I felt kind of just like I'm reading as like a job, and I'm reading books that I just didn't even care about because they were popular on booktube and it was what everyone else was reading, and I just don't want to do that anymore. That's definitely a plan for 2021, is to not always go with the hype. But in 2020, I did read 68 books. I tried to make it to 70, I just couldn't. But I did read 68 books, and that's like over 22,000 pages. I tallied it up. It's so crazy. I want to say the exact amount, which I have here on my iPad, was 22,632 pages. I read a slew of genres, mostly fantasy, but a lot of them were considered like fantasy, horror, literary fiction. So I was going to break it up into genres, but it's kind of hard to put every book into just one genre, so I didn't do it that way. But I did tally up how many pages I read, and 22,632 pages. That's a lot of pages, and I just don't even remember a lot of it, I will say. But I'm gonna go over my favorites of this year, my least favorites of this year, and my reading plans for 2021. Favorite books of 2020. I was gonna do a top 5, but I really didn't want to narrow it down to like most favorite to like least favorite, top 5 situation. I'm just gonna say the ones that really I enjoyed and surprised me this year, and that would be Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas, which I'm a sucker for her writing. I always never wanted to like her writing, but in the last 3 years where I kind of started diving into her writing, I love everything that she puts out. It's just a guilty pleasure for me, and I can't wait for more from the Crescent City series because I really fell in love with those characters. And right when the pandemic was happening was when I read that book, and it just really was the book that got me through all of the crazy hecticness of the beginning of quarantine, and it was a really great escape for me at that time. So I'm very happy that I picked it up, and I can't wait to continue more into the series. Then I read The Dark Half by Stephen King, which I really enjoyed. It was a new Stephen King for me. I did not read The Dark Half. I never really wanted to pick it up. I didn't really know what it was about, but it is about a novelist, and I want to say it's like a reflection of Stephen King and his dark side and his good side, like the battle that he has with his like inner self. And he put it down on paper, and it really turned out to be like this magnificent work of art. If you're looking for a really good Stephen King book that's kind of underrated and a lot of people don't talk about, check out The Dark Half, because the villain in that is great. I just loved everything about it, and I have a lot more information on it in my previous wrap-ups, so if you want to check those out and you want to know more about The Dark Half. But definitely one of my top 5 Stephen King books of all time that I've read so far. It was a really great read, and it's not that long. It's not a chunker, so it's definitely doable for those of you that don't like reading his bigger books, or you just get intimidated by bigger books. It definitely is an easier, not lighter, definitely not lighter subject matter, but it's definitely like an easier to get through read. Another book that really stuck with me was Burn Our Bodies Down by Rory Power. I had gotten in an advanced reader copy for this book through NetGalley, and I read it immediately. I loved it. I breezed right through it. I really love Rory Power's writing in this. I didn't love Wilder Girls, and I actually hardly even remember what it was about. I just remember there was a lot of body horror in there, and I don't do well with that. As a reader, as I'm growing, I'm starting to realize things that don't serve me anymore, and obviously I love horror. I always did, but as I'm growing up and getting older and things are starting to bother me a little bit more, I'm a little bit more sensitive to subject matter, so some horror like Wilder Girls just kind of bothers me, and like The Troop, it just kind of bothers me. So Burn Our Bodies Down by Rory Power is a new favorite book of mine. It was just really cool how it was done. It was weird like her other books are. Rory Power just writes these like contemporary, but they're like, they always have like a weird twist to them, and this one was kind of like, felt very witchy to me, very folkloric to me, and I just really enjoyed it. So definitely check it out. And like I said, I'm not going to go into what these books are typically about because I don't want this video to be too long. So if you want to know more, just check out my previous wrap-ups for these books. You'll find them, trust me. The next, I read Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and I really love this book. Now, the last half of 2020 really turned into be a better reading year for me, like the last 6 months, because I was able to focus a little bit more. I wasn't so worried about the pandemic, and I was getting a lot more books read. But I did read Mexican Gothic within 2 sittings. I really enjoyed it. I know it's very polarizing. Not a lot of people enjoyed this book, but I really did. I thought it was disgustingly beautiful, and you'll never look at mushrooms or like any type of fungus growing in the ground the same ever again. It was just a really interesting Gothic story, and I just loved the atmosphere. I just loved everything that it portrayed. I found a new favorite author. Silvia Moreno Garcia writes so beautifully, and I can't wait to read more from her. And then in October, I read The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova, and this book just took over my entire life in October. I didn't want to read anything else besides this one, and it's over 600 pages. It is a huge book, so if you plan on reading it, just know it's going to take over your whole life for a month, because it's not an easy read. It takes up a lot of your attention. You have to read every word, and you can't just breeze through it. Like, you kind of just have to live in it. And that's what I did, and I loved it so much. It is like, it's like a... It's about vampires and Dracula, and like, do vampires really exist? And like, I had that question in the back of my mind the entire time reading The Historian, because our main character is going on the hunt looking for her father, and he was someone who was researching that subject matter. He experienced vampires, or what he thought were vampires, and he was writing about it and trying to figure things out. And it's kind of like a secret society, dark academia story where these vampire people were finding out that their story is going to kind of get leaked out, because these students are doing research at Oxford University, and they're doing research and they're finding out more and more about vampires, and it's coming to light. And things just start happening on campus, and it's literary fiction, but it has that fantasy aspect, and it really makes you think, like, was Dracula a true story? And that's what it really went off of, was how Bram Stoker went to his publisher and said, you know, Dracula is real, this is a true story, I want you to publish this, like, it's got to get out there, people need to know about it. And then the publisher, you know, kind of went back at him and said, listen, Jack the Ripper's a real thing right now, we don't want to freak people out more, so we're just going to put this out as fiction and let people make their own decisions. So was that truth? Are there vampires out there? I don't know, but I'm still thinking about it. And this book is well over 600 pages, and like I said, it took over my entire life for a month, but I am so happy that it did. I don't want to say it was my favorite book of the year, but it was very close to it. So highly recommend if you're looking for something. And reading that made me realize how much I love literary fiction, how much I love historical fiction, and how I'm growing out of the YA genre. And I want to read more adult literary fiction, historical fiction, things that are educational, things that make my mind think, things that take place in a college setting or school setting. I really enjoy, that's academic, that you're going to learn something from. It's going to make you think. And it doesn't play on emotions as much. Like YA always has the relationships and things like that, and I'm kind of like over that. I want something a little bit more with substance to it. After that, I read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, and now this is my favorite book of the year. This book made me feel things that I never thought I could feel just by words. It was so beautiful. It was like a movie playing out in my mind, and I just fell in love with the characters so much. Addie LaRue is just a beautiful human being, and I really enjoyed reading about her life. And it really is like a true, like, it's like a ghost story, this book. It's really, Addie LaRue trades her mortal life for an immortal life in exchange for people not remembering her. And it's just a sad life that she lives, and unfortunately, you know, she had to live it that way because she gave up, because she made this deal with a demon in the 1700s, and she thought that's what she wanted. She really thought that's what she wanted. And as life went on, and as 300 years passed her by very quickly, and nobody remembers her, and she runs into issues where, you know, she has an apartment, and the apartment owner doesn't recognize her and says, you're, you know, staying here and you shouldn't be staying here. And just all these things that you know, take for granted. And she was just, it was just really sad. But at the same time, there was like a lot of happy things that happened throughout, and a lot of learning lessons that took place. And the end just had me in tears. But I just absolutely love this. And Victoria Schwab really knows how to write novels correctly. And now she's not perfect by any means, but her writing just really clicks with me, and everything that I've read from her really like makes me feel good, and I just get it. And I could just tell how much blood, sweat, and tears have gone into this book. We have been waiting like 10 years for this book, and you could tell how much of her soul went into this book, and I just loved it so much. And a lot of my friends did too. I'm glad that everyone is really loving this book, and I highly recommend it because it's my favorite book of the year. Then I read Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. This is my first time reading Wuthering Heights, and it's been a while since I read a classic, and I actually really enjoyed it. I didn't think I was going to. The beginning is very slow, and the writing style is a little complicated, especially going from modern day writing to classics. It's a little different, so you're kind of getting used to the language again, and I just really liked it because it was a story of revenge. Reading about revenge back in like the 1800s is completely different than the revenge that we have today, but it's pretty brutal. But I really enjoyed the characters. You love to hate them, and it was a fun classic to read. Probably one of my favorites so far, and I can't wait to read more from the Bronte sisters. Finally, another book that I read that I loved was Magic Lessons by Alice Hoffman. This was very close to being my favorite of the year, but LaRue just beat it. But I really loved it. This is a prequel to the prequel of Practical Magic. We are following Maria Owens, who is the, I want to say like matriarch of the Owens women. She started it all. She started the curse that affects all of the Owens women in their lives. And this was her story on how we got to this curse and what happened to her along the way. Also, it's following her through her entire life cycle, how she finds love, how she finds revenge, and it was just so beautiful, so true to folkloric witchcraft as well. And you could just tell Alice Hoffman did a lot of research, especially about Salem, and I loved how she put real life people as characters in a fictional story. So it was kind of like where fact met fiction, and it really brought to life the characters and Maria and the Owens family, and I can't wait to read more. I heard that there's one more book coming out that she's going to be writing, and it's going to be sad that it's going to be the final book in the Practical Magic series, but I can't wait to read it because I just love reading about the Owens women. It's very relatable, and yeah, so if you like books about witches and witchcraft and earthy magic and spells and finding love and finding yourself, Magic Lessons is an amazing book for you to pick up. All the books in the Practical Magic series are great to pick up. You don't have to read them in order, but if you want to, you can, but they're written as standalones, so you don't have to read the series. But if you do read the series, you'll pick up on little Easter eggs that Alice left along the way. So getting into my worst books of 2020, well, there's a lot of disappointing reads, I will say. Majority of the books that I read this year, I didn't love. Definitely more than half. But I will say, I narrowed it down to a few that I want to discuss with you. The first one would be Under the Dome by Stephen King. I just couldn't take it. There was way too many problematic scenes in this book, and it is a product of its time, but I just couldn't push myself through it and to deal with it, and I hated every single character in this book, so I pretty much DNF'd it. Then Survivor Song by Paul Tremblay is another one that I DNF'd. I did not like it. I was bored to death. This was our group pick for the Horror in 24 readathon that we did in the summer, and we had a live show for it, and some people liked it. It's definitely a character study book. It's not so much about the zombies that it was portrayed to be, and I was excited to read something like that because we were pretty much coming out of the midst of the pandemic. Not that it was ending, but the fear of it was kind of gone, and it just became our new norm. So I was excited to pick up a book that was reflection of that, and it was just not that, and it was weird, and I just didn't like following the characters. I wanted more action. I wanted more of like a Walking Dead scenario that it was like portrayed as, and it just wasn't that. It was really mediocre and not enjoyable. Then I read Crave by Tracy Wolff, which like I enjoyed because it was like comical, but like looking back on it, it was a really bad book, and like definitely belongs on like the internet, not published, but there will be some people that like it, especially if you love Twilight, and that's why I picked it up. I read it with Heather at Bookables, and my buddy read it, and we had a really good time buddy reading it because we were just cracking up by like, I can't believe this is happening, like why is this even happening, what is it, what is life right now? And yeah, it was just that. So I hate to say that like it was a bad book, but it really was a bad book. But if you want to laugh, if you want something easy to read, pick it up. But like it's not good. It's not good. Then next, to follow up with that, I read Midnight Sun by Stephanie Meyer, and that really was just not good either. Reading from Edward's perspective, I thought I'd like Twilight a lot more reading it from Edward's perspective, because sometimes because Bella was a little bit more of like a whining character, but I felt Edward was just worse than Bella, and he was just boring and like immature and disgusting, and I just didn't want to read anymore from his perspective, so I DNF'd that one as well. I was supposed to be reading that with a group of friends from high school because we all had read Twilight together back in the day, and then we were gonna read Midnight Sun, and we all kind of just fell off and said, what the fuck is this shit? Next, I read The Orphan of Cemetery Hill by Hester Fox. Now, I absolutely love Hester Fox. I love her writing. I think she's a great writer. Beautiful, beautiful books in the past, but this one, it didn't click for me. It felt very juvenile. It felt very rushed. I almost felt like Hester didn't even write it. It just didn't remind me of her writing at all. And it was supposed to be like a story about a girl who lives in a cemetery who talks to ghosts, and it ended up being more about like the grave robbers, and it was just like not good. It was definitely, it took place in, I want to say it was like the 1920s or something like that. So there was a little bit more of that going on. So it was a time period thing, which I like. I love historical fiction. I just felt like it wasn't well researched enough, and I don't know. I just didn't like it. So I'm a little disappointed in that one. Next, I read, well, yeah, I read Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Caesar. He's a booktuber. I really enjoy his content. I really enjoy his taste in books. But I just didn't love his book, and I feel really upset about it, and I will read more from him. I just felt that not much happened in the first 3/4 of this book until like the last quarter, and I was just bored by that point. It is a slasher. It is a YA, and I think this book really brought to realization for me like how I am done with reading YA books. They just don't serve a purpose in my life anymore. And you know, in the backdrop it's a horror slasher, but in the forefront it's like relationships with people, life lessons, like all that stuff, and it needs to be there. That content needs to be there, especially for young adults, but I'm not a young adult anymore, so the content is just not serving purpose for me, and it's boring me, and I feel like I've read it already. I've read this hundreds of times already. I'm just done. So, yeah, so Clown in a Cornfield, disappointment. It was just, and then the slasher parts were just not gory enough for me. I don't know. It was to be expected. There was no surprising parts, and I was just not that into it. So that got unhauled real quick. Another book that I read was The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. Now, I know a lot of people are going to come after me for this one, but I'm not saying that it was something that I didn't enjoy. I didn't not enjoy it because I finished this book rather quickly. I just felt like I read an episode of Sesame Street. And this is supposed to be an adult book, and I just felt like I was reading Sesame Street. Nowadays, we need books that kind of give us that like feel-good feel, especially with what's going on in the world today. But I just felt that this was just so whimsical for an adult, and I read more middle grade that had more hard-hitting issues than this one. Yeah, it just was an episode of Sesame Street for me. So I mean, I gave it 4 stars, but totally not what I expected. I thought there would be a lot more action and adventure involved in this. But I did love the characters. It was just too feel good for me, if you know what I mean. Yeah, so I'm unhauling it. I think I finished up with the audiobook, and the audiobook is great. So if you're someone who wants to read it, pick up the audiobook. Don't read it physically. The audiobook is a little bit more animated and fun. So if you are looking for a feel good, I do recommend it. It's Sesame Street. Finally, another book that I absolutely hated, and this was our final Stacks of Strange book club pick, and that is The Library at Mount Char by Scott Hawkins. This book was so freaking weird, and we just finished up our live show last night, and Rain brought up a good point. She's like, it's literally the author taking everything in his brain and putting it in one book. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And I DNF'd it around like page like 110, 120, 30, something like that. I just couldn't take it anymore. I had no idea what was going on. I kept falling asleep. I just didn't want to put myself through it. At the end of the year, I wanted to read more things, and it was just killing me to read it. So I DNF'd it, and I feel bad that I did. And it was something that's been on my TBR for a long time, so I was so excited to read it. But damn, like, I just don't understand how the ratings for this book are so high. I just don't get it. I don't understand how the ratings for this book are so high, because it makes no sense. But maybe if I pushed through and read the ending, it would. But from what Rain and Marcy, because they both finished it, from what they said, it really still didn't make any sense to me. And me and Amy were just like, I don't know. So, moving on. No more Mount Char. That is getting unhauled, gone. I'm never revisiting that ever again. It was torture. Absolute torture. That's it for like my best and worst books of 2020. Let me know if you guys read any of these, if you loved them, if you hated them, if you felt the same as me. Whatever the case is, let me know in the comments down below. But I wrote myself some questions here to kind of just like talk about with you guys what you can expect from me and my channel in 2021. And yeah, like what's going on. So, what have you learned this year? I ask myself. I have learned that my reading tastes have changed, honestly. I just know that I want to read more adult books. I want to read more classics. I want to read more historical fiction. I want to get more into nonfiction. I want to read things of substance in the future and bring that to you guys. I've been reading a lot more about spirituality and getting more in touch with that, and I'm loving that. I'm loving that so much, and getting back into doing my tarot cards and doing all of that stuff brings me joy, and I lost that for a while. Like when I first started booktube, if you go back to my first videos, which are terrible, I incorporated a lot of my spirituality in my channel, but I kind of lost that along the way to kind of mold myself into what booktube is, and I don't want to do that. Like, I enjoy reading and I enjoy my spirituality, and we're gonna bring those two together. I'm not saying that you have to follow what I do, because it's a free world and there's free will. But if you are interested in what I do, I will bring you more content on that. And I'm going to try to do pick a card readings on my channel to just kind of give us insight into the year ahead, the month ahead, what to expect, things like that, because I do that for myself, and I want to kind of just do that for you as well in my content on my channel, because it's part of who I am. And I'm getting a little bit more comfortable being on the internet now. I want to share that with you guys. So I hope you will stay and stick around for it. Is horror still a genre that you read? Yes, I absolutely still read horror. I love reading certain types of horror, but I'm starting to weed out other certain types of horror that don't really serve me anymore. I want to read things that are a little bit more gothic, a little bit light on the body horror, things like that, like I've discussed previously. It's a little bit more sensitive for me, and I feel like it brings my like vibration down when I read things like that. So I'm just trying to not read as much horror. Also, the horror that's out there right now, it's just not serving purpose for me. Like, I'm not enjoying it, reading it at all. And there's other things that I want to read. So I'm kind of drifting away from the horror genre. Not saying that I won't ever read it again. I am actually currently reading Plain Bad Heroines, which is like a gothic style horror thriller mystery type book, which I'm enjoying, and I like things like that. But straight up horror like Camp Slaughter and Kill Creek and things like that, I think I'm gonna take a break from that for a while. What is something you'd like to work on in 2021? And a lot of things. I am going back to school, so I'm going to be working on my degree. I want to work on bringing you guys more quality content, things that bring me joy, like I said previously. I'm going to incorporate books and spirituality and all that fun stuff. So this is going to be really like my lifestyle channel, and I previously made a video about that in the summer, but I was also kind of in between finding myself and going through, I was kind of going through like a shift spiritually, and spiritual awakenings are really, they're not pleasant, and I thought like I wanted to go down the Wiccan path of things, and I did for a little while, and I studied it, but I just don't agree with a lot of that. I just want to be more spiritual. And I will say that I do witchy things, but I'm definitely a little bit more working on more of the spiritual side of things than, you know, labeling myself as like a Wiccan or things like that, because I'm not. And I don't agree with a lot of things like that. So I like to just kind of take little bits and pieces from all over and just apply it to my spirituality. And that's how I label myself, but I don't want to label. I just don't want to label. also want to work on not purchasing as many books because I just unhauled more than half my collection of unread or read books that I'll never visit again, and it's just such a waste of money. I would like to work more with my library and my Kindle that I have that I never use. I love my Kindle. I just feel like if I don't have the physical book, then I'm not actually reading the book, and it's just like a mental thing for me. So I'm gonna work on reading more from my Kindle and using my library because it's there for me, and I could save money, a lot of money. Yeah, I spent a lot of money on books, a lot of wasted money on books that I didn't enjoy this year, and I think I learned my lesson. So moving on, I'm going to be using my Kindle. I also want to work on reading more diversely. I want to bring a lot more diverse subjects to my channel and educate myself a lot more, and I have been, but I haven't been doing enough, and I want to bring that more to my channel. There's just so much you could read in your lifetime, and I'm trying and I'm doing the best that I can. So I definitely want to incorporate a lot more of diversity to my channel as well. And finally, I just wanted to talk to you guys about what happened to the Constantly Reading book club. It's gone, not doing it anymore. I'm not interested in reading Stephen King no longer. I think I've read enough of his books right now, and I'm just burnt out. And I did it for 3 years, and it's time to move on from the Constantly Reading book club. There's just so many other things that I want to read. So I am a part of a book club called Stacks of Strange, and it's a nice group of girls. Rain from Brews and Binds, Marcy from Marcy Reads, Carol from Marie Reads, we have Kat from Kat Chats, Deja from Deja's Book World, and Amy from Amy Reads, and I think that's it. I think I got all of us in there, but there's 7 of us, and we read weird horror, thriller, like just weird books. That's why it's called Stacks of Strange. So if you want to join our book club, we do have a Discord, which I have linked down below. We have an Instagram, which is linked down below. And we also are working on a bunch of other things. This book club means a lot to us. It's like our little baby. And Rain is the one who actually developed the entire book club. She's the one that put it all together. So I give her so much credit for that, because it's a lot. It's really hard running a book club, especially being like the main host of one. But we all try to delegate and like do our part for the book club. But we will be having live shows. We have our Discord discussion. We are going to be doing live reading sprints on all of our channels. So if you want to join our book club, all the links are down below. It's going to be a blast. Our 2021 lineup is phenomenal. Our January book, Lakewood by Megan Giddings. So excited for that one. And our February pick and our March pick are all lined up. So if you're ready, come join us. It's going to be a blast. And I know Lakewood is $1.99 on Kindle right now because I just bought it. So if you're interested, get yourself a copy and join us in January, because the discussion is going to be great. So I think that's it. I think that's all I want to really touch upon. I haven't really filmed much towards the end of the year. I took a bit of a hiatus, and I just wanted to enjoy the holidays with my family and just kind of be stress-free. So here's to 2021. I wish everyone the best of luck, the best of health, and the best of happiness in the new year. We all deserve it. We are getting there. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and I cannot wait to go to BookCon again and hug everybody. So hopefully, if not this year, then next, but hopefully this year we get some relief. So thank you guys so much for watching as usual. And if you want to see more videos from me and more content from me, please just make sure you are liking and subscribing down below, and I'll be talking to you guys soon. Happy New Year and goodbye.